Wala ba si Senator Legarda sa taas? The 27th session of the Senate in the third regular session of the 16th Congress is hereby called to order. May I request all our colleagues to rise and observe a minute of silent prayer. I'm sorry?
I have the prayer of Senator
okay.
Loren.
Thank you. I didn't realize that. We recognize the acting majority leader, Senator Pia Cayetano, to read the prayer in behalf of Senator Legarda. Senator Cayetano, please.
Heavenly Father, we humbly come before you with praise and grateful hearts for all the bountiful blessings we receive each day. We ask you for your divine guidance and wisdom as we begin another week. Refresh our minds to act with greater urgency and purpose as we find peaceful solutions to all the problems facing our country today. Help us become more vigilant in guarding the gains we have achieved. Allow us not to let pass again the opportunity to fulfill this nation's potential and promise, and may integrity and uprightness govern in all what we endeavor for our people and for our country. We also join our Muslim brothers and sisters in prayer for the casualties and survivors of the stampede in Mecca. May all the families and affected individuals find their comfort and strength in your healing arms. This is all we ask and pray for in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you very much. May we now hear the University of Perpetual Help System Daltacoran, who will lead us in the singing of the Philippine National Anthem, after which they'll render a song entitled Tagumpay Nating Lahat.
Sa langit ng baga, ay tinatang pula ang tawag sa
Thank you very much to the University of Perpetual Help System Delta Coral for that rendition of the national anthem and the song entitled Tagumpay Nating Lahat. The Secretary will now call the roll.
Roll call of members. The Honorable Senator Sangara, Aquino Binay, Cayetano Alan Peter Compañero S., Cayetano Pia S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito Enrile Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Honasan, Lapid, Ligarda, Marcos, Osmeña, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Trillo.
14 senators are present. The chair declares the presence of the quorum. The majority leader is recognized.
Mr. President, I move that we dispense with the reading of the Journal of the 26th Session, September 23, 2015, and consider the same as approved.
Any objection? Hearing none. The reading of the Journal of Session number 26 on Wednesday, September 23, 2015 is dispensed with, and the same is hereby approved.
Mr. President, I would just like to recognize some guests here with us today. We have the Hume 103 Social Policies class, students of UP Los Baños College of Human Ecology, Department of Social Development Services, headed by Professor Mark Felizar, Professor Aaron Lecciones, and Mr. Dian Torrio.
Our guests from the is this humanities? No.
Hume?
Hume?
Is that correct? Hume.
What is Hume, if the chair may ask the majority leader?
What is Hume? Human Ecology.
Human Ecology 103 Social Policies class headed by Professor Mark Felizar. We welcome our guests, and the presence is made of record.
We also have with us, Mr. President, students from Columban College, Inc., Olongapo City, College of Social Work, headed by Professor Desiree Anonat, Professor Zostenes Alikdan. Yes, Mr. President.
The presence of the students from the Columban College, Inc., Olongapo City, College of Social Work, headed by Professor Desiree Anonat and Professor Sostenes.
Students from Pateros Technological College, Pateros, Metro Manila, headed by Professor Rolando Bailon, SSC President Jessica Silva, Treasurer Kimberly Avenido.
We welcome the students from the Pateros Technological College, Pateros, Metro Manila, headed by Professor Rolando Bailon, the SSC President Jessica Silva, and Treasurer Kimberly Avenido. Welcome to the Senate.
And Mr. President, we have officers of the Municipality of Moncayo, Province of Compostela Valley, headed by Mayor Joselito Brillantes and Vice Mayor Manuel Brillantes.
Mayor Joselito Brillantes and Vice Mayor Brillantes of the Moncayo, Compostela Valley. Their presence is made of record. We welcome them to the Senate.
Mr. President, we also have Daniel Witt, President International TAA and Investment Center, and Wayne Bradford of ITIC, the same.
We make of record the presence of Daniel A. Witt, the President of the International Tax and Investment Center, together with the Senior Advisor, Mr. Wayne Barford. Welcome to the Senate, gentlemen, and we make your presence of record for this afternoon session.
Mr. President, I now proceed. I move that we proceed with the reference of business.
The Secretary will read the reference of business.
Message from the House of Representatives, letter from the House informing the Senate that on 21 September 2015, it concurred with the Senate amendments to the following House bills. House Bill number 1771, an act creating 2 additional branches of the Regional Trial Court and 2 additional branches of the Municipal Trial Courts in cities in the 3rd Judicial Region to be stationed in San Jose City, Nueva Ecija, further amending for the purpose Section 14, Paragraph C, and Section 29 of BP 129, otherwise known as the Judiciary Reorganization Act of 1980 as amended, and appropriating funds therefore. 1772, and creating 2 additional branches of the Regional Trial Court in the 3rd Judicial Region to be stationed in the Science City of Muñoz and the Municipality of Rizal, Nueva Ecija, further amending BP 129, otherwise known as the Judiciary Reorganization Act of 1980 as amended, and appropriating funds therefore. 2094, an act creating an additional regional trial court branch in 3rd Judicial Region to be stationed in the city of Maykawayan, province of Bulacan, amending for the purpose Section 14, paragraph C of BP 129, otherwise known as the Judiciary Reorganization Act of 1980 as amended, and appropriating funds therefore. 2186, an act converting the existing 5th Municipal Circuit Trial Court of Carmona General Mariano Alvarez, Cavite, into a municipal trial court with seat at the municipality of Carmona, and creating a separate municipal trial court for the municipality of General Mariano Alvarez, amending for the purpose Batas Pambansa 129, otherwise known as Judiciary Reorganization Act of 1980 as amended, and appropriating funds therefore. 2409, an act creating 2 additional municipal trial courts in the cities of Angeles City, 1 municipal trial court for Magalang, and 1 municipal trial court in cities for the city of Mabalacat, all in the province of Pampanga, thus amending for the purpose Batas Pambansa 129, otherwise known as the Judiciary Reorganization Act of 1980 as amended, and appropriating funds therefore. 2739, an act creating an additional branch of the Regional Trial Court to be stationed in the city of Giholgan, province of Negros Oriental, amending for the purpose Section 14, paragraph H of Batas Pambansa bilang 129, otherwise known as the Judiciary Reorganization Act of 1980 as amended, and appropriating funds therefore. And House Bill number 3396, an act creating 19 additional branches of the Regional Trial Court and the National Capital Judicial Region to be stationed in Quezon City, Metro Manila, further amending for the purpose Section 14, paragraph D of Batas Pambansa 129, otherwise known as the Judiciary Reorganization Act of 1980 as amended, and appropriating funds therefore.
To the calendar, to the archives.
Bills on first reading, Senate Bill number 2963, an act strengthening the practice of electrical engineering in the Philippines and instituting higher standards of regulation in the licensing and registration of electrical engineering, introduced by Senator Paulo Benigno Bam Aquino IV.
Civil Service Government Organization and Professional Regulation.
2964, an act amending Republic Act number 6975, otherwise known as the Department of Interior and Local Government Act of 1990, as amended by Republic Act number 8551. The Senator Defensor Santiago.
Public Order and Dangerous Drugs.
2965, an act amending Republic Act number 386, also known as the Civil Code of the Philippines, Article 1032, an ordinance to succeed, by Senator Defensor Santiago.
Women, Children, Family Relations, and Gender Equality.
2966, an act to regulate the practice of acupuncture, creating for this purpose an acupuncture
Civil
board.
Service, Government Organization, and Professional Regulation.
2967, an act authorizing the sale of parcels of land in Barangay Cruz, Naligas, Quezon City for its legitimate and qualified residents, amending for the purpose RA 9, the practice of acupuncture, creating for this purpose an acupuncture
Civil
board.
Service, Government Organization, and Professional Regulation.
2967, an act authorizing the sale of parcels of land in Barangay Cruz, Naligas, Quezon City for its legitimate and qualified residents, amending for the purpose RA 9500, otherwise known as the University of the Philippines Charter of 2008 by Senator Recto.
Education, Arts and Culture, Urban Planning, Housing Development, Housing and Resettlement.
Additional reference to Business Committee Report number 264, prepared and submitted by the Committee on Ways and Means on Senate Bill number 2968, with Senators Osmeña III, Escudero, Recto, Ercito Estrada, Grace Po, Paulo Benigno Bam Aquino IV, Defensor Santiago, Cayetano AP, Maria Lourdes Nancy Espinay, Joseph Victor Ejercito, and Sonny Angara as authors thereof, entitled An Act Modernizing the Customs and Tariff Administration, recommending its approval and substitution of Senate Bill numbers 168, 442, 456, 74188 to 2340, 2373, and 2913, taking into consideration proposed Senate resolutions numbers 444, 1339, 1533, 1534, 1536, 1537, 1538, 1539, 1549, and 1581. Sponsor, Senator Angara.
Calendar for ordinary business. Majority Leader.
A minute suspension, Mr. President.
Suspended for 1 minute.
Ready to resume?
Session is resumed.
With the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of Senate Bill number 2894 under Committee Report number 200. This is the bill on the basic law for the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region, Mr. President.
The motion is in order.
Mr.
Approved.
Mr. President, the parliamentary status is that we are in the period of interpellation. I move that we recognize the sponsor, Senator Marcos.
Senator Marcos is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I move that we recognize Senator Soto to continue his interpellation.
Senator Soto is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the distinguished gentleman accept my continuation of my Part 2 interpellation, Mr. President?
Certainly, Mr. President, I yield to the gentleman from Quezon City.
Thank you. Mr. President, when we ended our conversation or interpellation last Wednesday, we were on Section 57. Actually, we ended with Section 57. Let me go to Section 58 now, Mr. President. This is the qualifications of the Chief Minister. One of the qualifications of the Chief Minister is that he or she is a bona fide resident of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region. How do we determine that he or she is a bona fide resident? Who determines the same, Mr. President?
The residency will be determined by the COMELEC, and they will be going back to the records of.
The Supreme Court, Mr. President, has set out already standards to the resident of what is the requirements for residency to be recognized, and that is what the same standards that will be used for the Chief Minister of the Bangsamoro Parliament.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Now, in your bill, Section 59 and 63 provides that the Chief Minister and the Deputy Chief Minister shall be elected from amongst the members of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region Parliament. The members of the Parliament may serve up to 3 consecutive terms. Should there be, I'm wondering, Mr. President, should there not be a limit also as to how many terms a member can be a Chief Minister or Deputy Chief Minister of the Parliament, considering that the Chief Minister performs the functions of both a head of government and head of the legislature of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region?
We do not have any term limits. We have not specified any term limits because, generally speaking, it is customary for the head of the legislative body to be allowed to serve as many terms as he is allowed to serve. He or she is allowed to serve as a member of parliament. So the limitations that will on the terms on the members of parliament will apply to the chief minister.
Well, yes, we were thinking that should it not be just say 1 term or 2 terms as chief minister and not the full 3 terms. Well, I'm just speaking on the mind of the gentleman, Mr. President.
Well, Mr. President,
it's just an idea.
The thing is that there is no for the head of the legislature, in the same fashion as our Senate President or the Speaker of the House, there is no term. They serve at the pleasure of the body, and so it's possible that a chief minister might be elected, and that some few weeks, months down the line, as we have seen in other parliaments in other countries, there will be a vote of no confidence, and the leadership is vacated, and the new leadership is elected. So the question of term limits does not necessarily apply when it comes to the head of the legislature, because it is simply because for one thing there is no term, and it is simply at the pleasure of the body of the members of parliament.
I will concur with that answer, Mr. President. Thank you. Now, under Section 60, paragraph B, the Chief Minister has the power to appoint certain positions in the Autonomous Region, Bangsamoro Autonomous Region. Should the appointment of heads of ministries, agencies, bureaus, and offices of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region be subject to guidelines and qualifications to avoid any biases on the appointment and to prevent unqualified appointees unfit for the position?
Well, we could include more very specific qualifications in that. I think, but I think it really is left to the discretion in the same fashion as it is left very much to the discretion of the president as to who he would like to nominate to the positions as heads of departments and members of his cabinet. So as to give in this case, the chief minister, a full scope of choice that he might want to. It might, for example, in the case of the national government, we do not, for example, require the Department of Agriculture be headed by an agriculturist. So that the reason that is that it might be the opinion of the president when he or she nominates the head of the department or the secretary of the department, that he or she can choose anyone that they think is most qualified. So we leave it to the discretion of the chief minister. In the same fashion, we leave it since it is on the executive department. Since it is in the executive department, then we leave it to the head of the executive department to decide who should head the different offices that are under the executive department.
But you see, Mr. President, in the national government, there is an agency that ensures that the appointees are qualified as a check and balance, like the Commission on Appointments.
Oh, well,
So don't you think there should be some kind of a agency in the parliament or in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region that can act like something like that?
like the Commission on Appointments,
Yes,
Mr. President? That is probably a good idea, but that will again be up to the Bangsamoro Parliament to decide in its rules how the process of nomination and appointment will be undertaken. We do not, again, because what we are talking about here is very much, we come again, we talk about autonomy again. We leave as much of that discretion and of those decisions to the Chief Minister and do not limit the number of choices that he might have. So that is simply following, again, trying as much as possible to allow the greatest degree of autonomy that it is possible for the regional government.
Well, definitely I am in favor of local autonomy, but sometimes there should be some limits. If you do not mind, Mr. President, I will, as I've done before, I will take a second look at that suggestion of mine, and perhaps if I think it's necessary, I will propose it to the gentleman. It will be up to the gentleman if he will so decide or not.
I think a body that can review, again, like the Commission on Appointments, but within the Bangsamoro Parliament.
Within the Parliament, yes, something to that effect.
Perhaps
Let
there
me
might
make
be
a study on that. and
some
perhaps-
kind of review board just to make sure that, well, number one, that the such normal requirements as educational attainment, age, and things like
Yes.
that are satisfied. And furthermore, as we do in the Commission on Appointments, we also question nominees on policy.
Yes.
And on their
Precisely.
past experiences and what how that will indicate which direction they will take their department in terms of policy making. So that is something that we could do, but it is because in our case and in the national government, in our case, the executive department is clearly distinct from the legislative department. And that's why this is a check and balance. Whereas in this case, the executive department is headed by the chief minister, and so also the legislative department. So we would have to find a way to, because if the chief minister is still involved in nominating, and will also be involved in reviewing his own nomination, that would seem to be an unnecessary step. Maybe if we can find a way so as to make it a true system of checks and balances. That means that somehow the chief minister would no longer although sitting as chief minister, would be removed from the process of examining, of questioning, of reviewing the nominees. So, I'm just speculating now, trying
Yes.
to see how we could do it.
Yes.
Would it be members of parliament that would be on that review board?
It's an idea, Mr. President. Now, let me look back at history. During the time of your father, Mr. President, what was the way they did it during the Parliament, in the interim Batasan Pambansa?
I'm sorry, what was the...
During the time of your father,
Yes.
in the interim Batasan Pambansa, the ministers who were appointed by then the Prime Minister, did they undergo such a
review? Yes,
A review.
Yes, as a matter of fact, they did. Many times during the IBP, many times the ministers were made to appear not only on the confirmation of their appointment, but on specific issues. So that one is clearly a very clear check and balance on the
Yeah.
executive and the legislative oversight function.
All right.
So, dito, medyo nakakaiba dahil isa lang ang body. that panggagalingan. There's, of course, there's always the ultimate sanction of the Bangsamoro of the Parliament casting a no confidence vote and removing if for abuse of power or for incompetence or for somehow disagreeing with the policy that is laid out by the Bangsamoro government. So there is that power that they have, but it does not include a review as the gentleman is proposing.
All right. As I said, I'll take a second look, and if you don't mind, we will be consulting with your office.
Yes, thank you. Yes,
regarding
please.
that now.
We would be
Okay.
very interested to see what kind of system we could come up with.
All right, thank you. Now, on the status of these appointees, will they be coterminous with the Chief Minister, or what happens if, let's say, the Chief Minister is removed by the Parliament?
Well, they would have to leave their positions, and the new Chief Minister would have to form a new government. Would have to form a new cabinet.
So, coterminous, by the way.
I imagine, yes,
Yes.
it would have to be coterminous,
Okay,
because these are his subordinates, these are his lieutenants, these are his alter egos, and if the Chief Minister is removed and changed, then it would again have to be the alter ego of the new Chief Minister.
Thank you for that, Mr. President. We do not find in your version the provision on the titular head of the Bangsamoro, the Wali. May we know the rationale for not including this?
We could not actually. That was a subject of great study and a great good deal of debate, because there seems to be in the definition of what a wali is, that the wali is someone who is close to God, or somebody who is a friend of God or a student of Allah. This is always something that comes up, and we thought that it was inappropriate to have a religious figure in government to follow the dictum and the principle of the separation of church and state. Secondly, there was no real definition of what the wali is and what they are supposed to do. In the original version of the draft BBL, they are merely to be part of as I said, there will be a figurehead for the Bangsamoro Parliament, and they would be involved on ceremonial duties alone. And one of the things that was explained to us by members of the different sultanates is that we asked, what is the role of the wali, and where does it come from? And they said the wali, in our case, in the sultanate's case, is that the wali is the representative of the sultan, and the sultans were saying, we do not need a representative since we are available to represent ourselves. Furthermore, this is part of the system that was, the wali is again part of the system that was copied from the Malaysian system. So again, this brought about this concern that why are we organizing this government in the exact same form as they have in the Federated States of Malaysia, and which immediately raised the specter of separatism. And maybe this is because they have planned to move to transfer from the Philippines to Malaysia, and this was the first step, etc., etc. Again, to remove all of those doubts, it was I think agreed that the wali is not actually necessary, and the job of the Bangsamoro Parliament can very well be done without a wali there. So, the two reasons to separate church and state, Secondly, to assure any of those who had fears that this is somehow a beginning to separatism again. That was an issue that I think that removing the role of the Wali from the Bangsamoro government was advisable.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for that. In Section 61, you want the Chief Minister to take his oath to the President of the Republic. I agree with that, Mr. President. I think I can sense your underlying reason for it.
Yes, it's really very simple. Once again, to stress the point.
Yes.
That they
to make sure that
they are in fact
Yes.
in fact a part of the national
All right.
government and not a separate one.
Thank you. Now, I have a fairly good idea of this one, but the next one, but just to place it on record, I hope you spread it into the records. Why are we designating the Chief Minister to be an ex officio member of the National Security Council and the National Economic and Development Authority, Mr. President?
Well, there are two different reasons for the ex officio membership of the Chief Minister in the different bodies. The National Security Council is clearly because security issues are very, very prevalent in Muslim Mindanao. And the help of the Chief Minister in trying to alleviate the fighting, trying to improve the situation in the conflict areas was thought to be absolutely necessary to be able to solve or at least address the problems in the conflict areas. So if there is an uprising, if there is somehow a localized fight of some kind, that would be of concern it will become a security concern for the entire country, then in Muslim Mindanao, then it is, I think it was rightly felt that the Chief Minister should be involved in the decisions that the National Security Council would be making, especially when it comes to the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region. In the case of the NEDA, it is foreseen that a very important part of this the peace process will be the development of Muslim Mindanao, and that is why that is a key component, and I think that it is a necessary component. And unless we actually achieve that accelerated development for Muslim Mindanao, then the peace process cannot completely be successful. And so to make that that process more streamlined and more coordinated with the policies of national government, then it was felt also that the Chief Minister should be able to have a voice and a vote in the NEDA, and when it comes to the plans for economic development in Muslim Mindanao.
I totally agree, Mr. President, especially in the issue of security.
Yes.
I'm glad that you spread that into the records. Let me make on record also a statement that was attributed to me in one of the newspapers today. And I would like to place on record the fact that I did say that. That is my concern about the kidnapped foreigners and the Filipina in the island garden city of Samal. I was hoping that the MILF, to show their mastery and control of Mindanao, can rescue these hostages from whoever is holding them or have taken them. As a matter of fact, I have challenged them that if they do, I will terminate my interpellation on the BBL and work for its speedy passage, Mr. President, because it shows that they can really maintain peace in that area, and that is the reason for the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region, Mr. President.
Well, I quite agree, Mr. President. I think in the cases that are in such cases as that has been mentioned, the kidnapping in Samal Island, I think that certainly we would need the assistance. It would certainly make the process of finding and arresting the perpetrators of such a crime much easier with the assistance of not only the MILF but the local, all the local the different sectors in the local communities. Of course, we already have a great deal of presence, military presence there. But as we know, these are sometimes such rather insular communities, and they really keep to themselves. And it would take a so-called insider to actually be able to find out the important intelligence as to what has happened to all of these victims. In the case, it has happened before that in cases of kidnapping, that immediately, even if the AFP and the PNP have yet to conclude their investigation, that members of the local community, be they local government officials, be they members of the MNLF, members of the MILF, or even just civilians in the local community, even before the government forces had been able to conclude or to come to any findings in their investigation, that the intelligence or the information that was necessary to find the victims and to find also and to identify those who had committed that crime, this information was given to the government and made facilitated, indeed, made very quick the conclusion, to bring to a conclusion the investigation and to bring those who had committed the crimes to justice. And so I think the challenge that the gentleman has made is a reasonable one, and it would be very interesting to know how the not only the MILF but all the other groups that are operating around that part of Muslim Mindanao will be able to help in this case. As we have seen again in many cases, that especially kidnapping, although they are kidnapped in one place, they are very quickly moved to another place, and often they continue to be moved around. And that kind of very rapid movement around the different areas in not only Muslim Mindanao but even in other parts of Mindanao or even other parts of the Philippines, that kind of information can only come from the locals, and that is why it is very necessary. And again, to bring us back to the point about the ex officio membership of the Chief Minister in the National Security Council, that is precisely the kind of function that they would be able to assist our forces in combating the kidnap for ransom as we are seeing today.
All right. Thank you for that, Mr. President. Allow me to move on to Section 65. This is the basic rights in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region. Among the basic rights, specifically Section 65F, is the right to seek constitutional change by peaceful and legitimate means. Can we be clarified as to the meaning or the phrase legitimate means? Is it the same with in accordance with the Constitution? Is that what you mean, Mr. President?
That is exactly what is meant by that. The peaceful and legitimate means is because there have been proposals coming from the different groups in Muslim Mindanao that there should be, or they have proposed some constitutional changes that would specifically affect Muslim Mindanao, and they are allowed certainly to do that, as any citizen is allowed to do that. But we are making the point, we are emphasizing the point that it is through peaceful means, and to use the normal means or the standard means that we use for constitutional change in the national government. So again, to emphasize the point that it is peaceful, that it is not by force, and secondly, that it is in accordance with the standard procedures, the standard rules that we have for any process of amending the Constitution.
Therefore, I take it that the gentleman would not mind if we be more precise and replace the paragraph or amend the paragraph, replace legitimate means with in accordance with the Constitution. At the proper time.
That would still be logical, and that would follow.
All
And
right.
I think that it would not it would not cause any confusion, and maybe help even in the clarity of what we are referring to in that statement.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Section 67, vested property rights. Paragraph 2 states that with respect to legitimate grievances of the inhabitants in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region arising from any unjust dispossession of their territorial and propriety rights, customary land tenure, or their marginalization shall be acknowledged. May we know if the statement is to be interpreted to mean that such acknowledged grievances will be binding to both the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region and the national government?
In this paragraph, we speak only of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region, and this applies again not only to the Bangsamoro people, but again the IPs or the Lumads. What we now in this document we refer to as the non-Moro indigenous peoples. Again, we have seen oftentimes in Muslim Mindanao that much of the conflict is about land, and if it can clearly be shown, if it can clearly be proven by any individual or any group that they have been dispossessed illegally or improperly of lands that belong to them, then that has to be recognized by the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region, and in that case, and reparations be made, so that to make sure that the proper situation is maintained. Again, this is something that is an ongoing problem in Muslim Mindanao because because of the claims that have been made on certain pieces of land that cover hundreds of years, and although they have not been formally recorded, it is very clear, and it has been recognized and accepted by all the different groups that land belongs to a certain group, and maybe another group will come in or another and say this is in fact ours, and take it over, and as long as it can be shown that that has been the case, then the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region must recognize it.
So it is binding in the bar, in the autonomous
Bangsamoro
region.
Autonomous Region. The Bangsamoro government must recognize that there has been such a dispossession of property that is rightly owned by an individual or a group.
To continue, Mr. President, the same paragraph states that the national government and the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region shall take effective measures for adequate reparation of the loss in such quality, quantity, and status collectively beneficial to the inhabitants of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region and determined pursuant to the 1987 Philippine Constitution and existing laws. May we know who shall exercise this power to determine this adequate reparation?
That will have to be determined by once the Bangsamoro government is formed, they will have to organize that mechanism. We do not define it in the law, as it is merely especially in this section. We talk only about property rights. So we leave it to the Bangsamoro government to decide on how that coordination process will be, and furthermore how the implementation will be. I imagine that if it is a case of land grabbing, for example, then the usual authorities would have to be the authorities, the policemen it would be our police and the courts who would enforce any such finding that the land has been improperly seized from an individual or a group.
The mention of unjust dispossession, which is being contemplated in section 67, does it include dispossession by private entities or persons as well?
It includes any form of unlawful seizure of lands, yes, it would apply to a group, it would be applied to an individual, it would apply to any of the inhabitants, and for that matter, anyone, any inhabitant, any citizen of the Philippines.
I'm slightly confused, Mr. President. The paragraph states that the national government and the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region shall take effective measures, etc., for the reparation, for the reparation of the loss. So if there are private entities and persons, how does that work, Mr. President?
Well,
the national government, we are involving the national government.
The process would have to involve the courts and would have to involve the police. Once the court has made a finding and issues an order as to how the lands must be redistributed or returned, then that will be the mechanism that they will use. Although this is this last sentence is more to do with, is really referring to lands that can be shown that were illegally and unjustly seized, but for one reason or another can no longer be returned. And so some other form of reparation must be found. And then that is what the Bangsamoro government and the national government will have to determine how what form of reparation that will be.
So right now we have not identified who shall have the power to exercise.
If for example,
such
the property has come under the ownership of an innocent and purchaser, then they have legally acquired rights on that property. Those from whom it was originally taken, certainly not the innocent, now the new landowner, they will have to find some other form of reparation. Either they would find some other public land that they will assign to that person, or depending upon negotiations with that person or persons, maybe it will be monetary or in some other form. So that is again, that is going to be determined by the discussions and the coordination between the national government and the Bangsamoro government.
Parang sa ngayon, parang ano pa eh.
There is a possibility that, for example, lands that are traditionally belong to a certain group. There is a possibility that, for example, lands that traditionally belong to a certain group have been were illegally seized from them 200 years ago or 300 years ago, and a community has grown up in the meantime there, and we cannot move the community out any longer. That is the kind of case that this section and this sentence is referring to.
All right, Mr. President, I will not belabor that point. I will, again, also, as far as I'm concerned, I'll take a second look. Mr. President, transitional justice. May we know what do you mean by transitional justice? What is the nature? Are these enforceable in the courts of justice?
Well, the Bangsamoro people have long contended that they have suffered many injustices over the many years that they have come under the republic. They have become part of the Republic of the Philippines, and that lands is one of the areas that is referred to. But there are also all kinds of other instances where the Bangsamoro people have grievances that they would like to bring up and that they would like to be recognized, and of course that they would like to have corrected. And that is what the transitional justice mechanism is about, is to try and examine what are those grievances that the Bangsamoro people would put forward to say that this has happened. And again, it is then for the Bangsamoro to determine what kind of reparation should be made. And that is why we have the language that says it referring to historical injustices, human rights violations, marginalization, unjust possession of territory, and unjust possession of their territorial sacred places and propriety rights and customary land tenure. So, because in very very early on, the customary land tenure, the ancestral domains, we were not recognized by the national government, and the national government just saw it as public land, just saw it as land that could be developed in whatever way they saw fit. These are the kind of grievances that the Bangsamoro people can say that this has happened to us, and we feel that this has been an unjust a period where there was an unjust possession, seizure, again, of territorial lands, of sacred places, because the national government did not recognize it at the time. We are hopefully more enlightened in this day and age, and we do recognize such sacred places and traditional ownership of lands. But certainly, perhaps certainly in the last century and maybe the century before, this was not the case, and this is what this system is hoping to correct.
Can you differentiate it with the Sharia court already in place, Mr. President?
No, no, the Sharia courts are only to do. Yes, the Sharia courts is it will be part of the judiciary, whereas this is going to be undertaken by the executive department. The executive departments, both of the national government and of the Bangsamoro government. So if there is information filed before a Sharia court on this case, I think it would have to be elevated to an RTC, or it would have to be elevated to a higher court. The Sharia courts are only for personal crimes in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region, and this kind of issue, I think, surpasses that categorization, because it has been a crime that has been ongoing for many years.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Section 72, Bangsamoro Autonomous Regional Human Rights Office. Why is there a need for the creation of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Regional Human Rights Office, Mr. President? What are the functions of this office?
This was simply to remedy, because this is actually just a slight variation to the proposal in the draft BBL. In the draft BBL, the human rights, the Bangsamoro government and the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region would have its own human rights commission. And again, that is a constitutional problem, because the Commission on Human Rights is a constitutional body, and again, it must have jurisdiction over all parts of the Philippines. In Section 7 of the Bangsamoro Basic Law,
So therefore,
they create a Bangsamoro Human Rights Commission, which shall be independent and impartial. It does not make clear that this is going to be an office of the Commission on Human Rights of the national government, and therefore that is what we have tried to define. That is why the language is that it is the Commission on Human Rights that will create the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region Human Rights Office. Again, we have tried to make it parallel to the situation that we have in other local governments.
so siyempre,
Where we have the Human Rights Commission is able to put up offices wherever it feels that it is necessary. And so since the subject of human rights was raised in the draft BBL, we just made sure that there is a there is a office of the Commission on Human Rights, but again, it must clearly be under the control and supervision of the Commission on Human Rights.
Yes, therefore, they may overturn findings and recommendations. The Commission itself.
Oh, certainly.
Certainly,
The
right.
Commission, because it would be a subsidiary office of the Commission on Human Rights of the national government.
Well, the way I look at it, you are giving the Bangsamoro Parliament the power to determine the details in the establishments of the barangay Bangsamoro Autonomous Regional Human Rights Office. Why not give it to the Commission on Human Rights?
It is, in fact, in essence, a branch office, if you will, of the Commission on Human Rights, because it is the Commission on Human Rights that will create that office.
Yeah, but saan ba yung 70? Yes, 74 second paragraph. No, last paragraph. Details pertaining to the establishments of the Bar Human Rights Office, such as membership, terms of office, and competencies and responsibilities, shall be provided by the Bangsamoro Parliament, consistent with the provisions of the Basic Law. It's not the Commission on Human Rights.
Well, no, the actual structure of that office, we again left to the determination of the Bangsamoro government in accordance with laws passed by the Bangsamoro Parliament. And yes, this is again an exercise that we have devolved to, rather a power that we have devolved to the Bangsamoro government in the interest of providing the autonomy that the Basic Law is creating and giving to the Bangsamoro government. It is the same again with the principle that I think we have run into several times in our discussions, Mr. President, that as much as possible, if it is practical, and if the law allows it, then what we do is we give that autonomy, that discretion, those decision-making powers to the Bangsamoro government as much as possible. This again is because of our recognition that it is the Bangsamoro people and the Bangsamoro government who will best know how to handle such issues in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region.
All right, I think I have a fairly good idea of what you mean, Mr. President. I was thinking earlier that this might run counter to the Constitution, because the Commission on Human Rights was actually created by the Constitution. Anyway.
Bangsamoro government as much as possible. This again is because of our recognition that it is the Bangsamoro people and the Bangsamoro government who will best know how to handle such issues in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region.
All right, I think I have a fairly good idea of what you mean, Mr. President. I was thinking earlier that this might run counter to the Constitution, because the Commission on Human Rights was actually created by the Constitution. Anyway, I will move on, Mr. President. Section 74, Rights of Labor. It is declared in Section 74 on Rights of Labor that workers have right to peaceful, concerted activities, including the right to strike. However, I noticed that there is no qualifier that the right to strike must be exercised in accordance with law, as declared in Section 3, Article 13 of the 1987 Constitution. Would it be appropriate if such condition be added to Section 74? Will you agree with that, Mr. President?
We have it in the first and second line that again it must be pursuant to the provisions of the 1987 Constitution, and the last sentence in the first paragraph of Section 74 states the right of workers
Oo.
publicly or privately
Inunan nila.
employed to form unions,
Pursuant to the provisions of the
shall not be not for purposes not contrary to law. So again, we are we put the limitation of it being in consonance, consistent with national law and the Constitution, albeit in separate sentences.
All right, Mr. President, I'll take that. Section 76, participation of women in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region. Your Section 76 requires that there shall be at least one qualified woman appointed to the Bangsamoro Cabinet. May we know why only one woman in the Bangsamoro Cabinet is required? Why not two? Why is it not possible to require proportional representation or a higher number than one?
We believe that it is that having one was sufficient. That is actually what was the finding of the committee after speaking and hearing the different women's groups, both in and out of the Bangsamoro, the proposed Bangsamoro Autonomous Region.
Let me take it this way. When you say at least one, it doesn't mean that it is confined to one.
That's right.
All right. It can be five.
There must be at least one.
All right.
And it is again, it leaves the discretion to the Bangsamoro Parliament Chief Minister.
Could be more than one. No?
That's certainly the case, Mr. President.
Could be more than, okay, just for the record. Definitely not a zero.
That is what we were trying to avoid. That there will not be a women's representative in the cabinet at all. So that is why at least one is the language that we have put in the substitute bill.
Thank you. Section 77, Rights of Children. The last paragraph of Section 77, paragraph 3, states that there should be mechanisms to address violation committed against children in armed conflict. Should we require not just mechanism but the enactment of stiff penalties for these violations committed against children?
That is implied that the mechanisms, because if they are shown to be violations, then the way to address that issue would be legal action. So as long as it is clearly shown to be a violation against children in armed conflict, because in the areas of conflict in Muslim Mindanao, and I suppose in all conflict areas, the first victims are the innocents, the children, and that is why there's a very specific provision just for the children who are victimized by fighting in conflict areas. There must be a special effort made to ensure that their safety and well-being is being monitored and is being promoted and protected by both the Bangsamoro government and the national government.
Okay. Section 78, Mr. President, Integrated System of Quality Education. You require the Bangsamoro Regional Government to establish a complete and integrated system of quality education. May we know if the phrase will include both Moro and non-Moro education?
This addresses more the standardized curriculum. This speaks to that, the standardized curriculum.
Moro and non-Moro education.
This addresses more the standardized curriculum. This speaks to that, the standardized curriculum, because we must have consistency in the entire country,
right,
of having the same system, right, having the same curriculum, so that at least what is being taught is the same to all the children in the entire country. I have made the point before, but it deserves to be made again, that one of the problems that was raised when we studied the experience of Spain and Catalonia was that one of the problems that they encountered was that they allowed the Spanish government allowed Catalonian schools or the Catalonian educational system to determine its own curriculum. And they said over the years, it turns out that this system was simply did not integrate the culture of the Catalonians of Catalan with the rest of Spain, because simply, and it makes very good sense, the children learn different things in Catalonia than they learn in the rest of Spain. Hence, they feel they are different from the rest of Spain. And so it turned out to be a divisive policy. And it is something that we had wanted to avoid. So we wanted to make sure that there is a consistent policy for education. We do allow, of course, in fact, we encourage the promotion of the establishment of institutes, foundations, other kind of teaching institutions to promote and to teach Islamic history, Islamic culture, the ideas of that have evolved through the centuries of Islamic philosophy. All of this is, of course, allowed by the Basic Law, and it is something that is again extremely important to our Muslim brothers and sisters, that their culture not disappear, not be subsumed by the culture of the rest of the country. So although they are still part of the rest of the country, they still maintain what their traditional culture is and many of the traditional ideas that come with the Islamic faith.
Yes. Well, further on, you require, well, I agree the issue of uniformity, no, but further on, you require that the Bangsamoro regional government adopt an educational framework that is relevant, responsive to the needs, ideals, and...
So although they are still part of the rest of the country, they still maintain what their traditional culture is and many of the traditional ideas that come with the Islamic faith.
Yes. Well, further on, you require, well, I agree the issue of uniformity, no, but further on, you require that the Bangsamoro regional government adopt an educational framework that is relevant, responsive to the needs, ideals, and aspirations of the inhabitants in the Bangsamoro Taurus region. Considering that they will be part of the national government, may we know if that framework will be required to be approved by the DepEd?
Well, yes. In fact, the DepEd is seen as being having again a very important role to play in that they establish the government schools, the so-called public schools, and states and state universities, colleges. The CHED will also be playing that important role. But that is why we cannot allow, we could not be allowed that there be no standardized educational system and curriculum in that area, and that is why we have included this provision.
Would they have basic courses such as Filipino and Rizal required to?
Yes, it will have to be, because we are proposing that again the curriculum that is taught in Bangsamoro schools will be, at least the core curriculum will be the same as in all other public schools around the country. Again, when it comes to specifically Islamic philosophy, history, culture, discourse, then again there can be specialized in teaching institutions to address that function.
Perhaps you will not mind if I propose an amendment to specifically mention the DepEd.
Certainly. No,
at the proper time, Mr. President.
Have it somewhere else.
Kasi nakalagay lang, consistent with the basic state policy.
Yes, that is the language that we are using. So perhaps if we are going to name specifically the Department of Education, we must also include CHED for the tertiary level educational
All right,
system.
all right. Thank you, Mr. President. At the proper time, I will propose it, and hopefully the gentleman will consider. Now, tribal university system. As I said during the start of my interpellations, I need also to be educated on the bill, Mr. President. What is tribal university system? And may we know the rationale for creating a tribal university system for the inhabitants of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region, but only an institute for its non-Moro indigenous peoples? Parang nalito ko ng konti eh.
Well, this is again, this refers to non-Moro indigenous peoples. Again, this is in the interest of promoting their own culture and their own history and their own philosophies and beliefs. So that despite the fact that we have the standardized curriculum, we could say that Section 78 refers to the standardized system, whereas Section 79 refers to a system specific to the non-Moro indigenous peoples.
I get it.
Yes.
I get it. I thought, I picture a university. I thought you were going to build
Well,
one. So it's a curriculum.
It's a curriculum.
It's a curriculum.
If an institution is is organized and created, then that would also be perfectly acceptable to satisfy this mandate that the tribal teachings be promoted and be widespread, be made widespread amongst the non-Moro indigenous peoples. We must also remember that there are, when we cannot view the non-Moro indigenous peoples as a homogeneous group. There are very many different subgroups, and with the attendant differences in history, in thinking, even in religion.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Let me move on to Section 80, Comprehensive and Integrated Health Service Delivery. May we know the definition of essential goods as contemplated in Section 80? Are these essential goods related to contraceptives, family planning supplies in the RH law, or do you have the bill would be able to define essential goods for the record?
The intent of that section is merely to put again the Bangsamoro, the healthcare system within the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in line with the rest of the country. Now, if the gentleman is referring to the mandates that are given to the Department of Health on the by the RH bill, then that will also apply in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region. It will be noted that this was touched upon actually. If those of the Muslim faith were found that some of the elements of the RH bill objectionable, and the response that we got and the assessment that was made by the Islamic scholars, was that for Islam they are not. Although for the Roman Catholic faith, it could be argued, as it has been at length in this body and in others, it seems that in Islamic thinkers and the religious leaders do not find the ideas that are in the RH bill objectionable.
I am tempted to ask you for an enumeration of what you mean by essential goods, but it will be lengthy in the bill. But
I think the definition of essential goods will be done. It will be the same as the enumeration of essential goods by the DOH. We are talking, of course, the obvious things such as medical supplies, medical medicines, drugs, and medicines for the inhabitants of Bangsamoro Autonomous Region. That is But if it is to include, it will include those goods that are that the RH bill has said that that mandates the Department of Health
Right.
to at least give access to the citizenry to such items.
Right. I think there was enough safeguard in the RH law concerning this. So I will take the answer of the gentleman. Thank you very much. Now, Section 84 speaks of the preservation of Bangsamoro Autonomous Region cultural heritage. May we know the equivalent of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region Commission for the Preservation of Cultural Heritage in the national government? Ano bang counterpart sa atin? No?
Historical Commission, I suppose, will be the closest parallel to that.
I see.
But of course, as it's stated in this provision, that it will be specific. It will be specific to the history, culture, and cultural arts, tradition, and heritage of the sultanates. Again, this is to try to correct this is similar to that provision that we had where we promote the education and the study of the traditions and the history and arts of the non-Moro indigenous people. This equivalent will be not this time for the sultanates, and we must recognize that there is not one single text that applies to all of the sultanates. There is not one single, shall we say, work of that covers the entire all of the sultanates. There are nuances, there are differences between the practices in the different cultures. So that is why we have named some of the sultanates that in the basic law. Again, we speak of the sultanates, we speak of the royal houses in the same fashion that we had previously.
Thank you. Mr. President, the next points I would like to raise are quite lengthy. This is about the Sharia justice system and the Sharia circuit courts and district courts. I wish to suspend my interpellation and include this in my part 3 tomorrow, Mr. President. I will try to finish everything by all the other parts by tomorrow.
With all due respect to Senator Sondo, may the chair know how...
Part 3 tomorrow, Mr. President. I will try to finish everything by all the other parts by tomorrow.
With all due respect to Senator Sondo, may the chair know how many more sessions he will require?
Hopefully, I will. The latest will be Wednesday, Mr. President. Unless the MILF rescue the hostages, I will stop tomorrow, Mr. President.
Anyway, okay.
Hopefully by Wednesday, Mr. President.
Hopefully by Wednesday.
Yes.
Thank you, Senator Soto. That's
Thank
all
you
that
very
we
much.
want.
We wish to thank the gentleman for accommodating my
I thank the
question.
gentleman from Quezon City. Thank you, Mr.
I will
President.
continue
you.
tomorrow.
So you will be back on the floor tomorrow, Senator
Yes,
Soto?
yes, Mr. President.
All right. So we call this bill
Unless
again.
you are sick and tired of my voice, I will,
All right. So the chair is now prepared to receive a motion to suspend consideration of the measure.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 2894 under Committee Report number 200.
The consideration of the measure is suspended with the manifestation of Senator Soto that he will continue with availing of the period of interpolation at tomorrow's session. So the Office of the Majority Leader will please put this on top of the agenda tomorrow. So
you.
consideration of the measure is suspended.
A minute suspension, Mr. President.
Suspended. 1 minute suspension.
Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
I move that we transfer Senate Bill number 2968 under Committee Report number 264 from the calendar for ordinary business to the calendar for special orders.
Any objection? Hearing none, so transferred.
With the consent of the Senate, I move that we consider Senate Bill number 2968 under Committee Report number 264.
Any objection? Hearing none, consideration of the measure is in order.
With the permission of the body, I move that the Secretary read only the title of the measure.
Secretary is directed to do so.
An act modernizing the Customs and Tariff Administration.
I move that we recognize Senator Angara to sponsor the measure.
Senator Sonny Angara is recognized to sponsor the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President, Madam Majority Leader, distinguished colleagues. I rise today to sponsor Senate Bill 2968 under Committee Report 264 entitled An Act to Prescribe the Customs Modernization and Tariff Act, or CMTA. Our aim is simple: to simplify, modernize, and align our customs procedures with global best practices by updating the Tariff and Customs Code of the Philippines, or TCCP. Hindi po itong simpleng gawain, Mr. President, lalo na't halos isang dekada na pong dinidebate ang CMTA. Hindi po payak na usapin ang pagmamodernisa ng customs dahil ang TCCP ay may mga probisyon na itinalaga ilang dekada na po ang lumilipas. Nabuo na po ang isang institusyon na may nakagawiang kalakaran. At kung ang kalakaran na ito ay batay sa batas na nalipasan na ng panahon, tiyak may mga problemang lilitaw. Tulad po ng issue sa balikbayan boxes at OFWs. Ang halagang nararapat exempted sa buwis para sa ating mga returning residents or OFWs ay 10,000 lamang po na itinakda noong 1987 pa ho. Tulad ng buwis sa pangkaraniwang empleyado, sa simpleng inflation lamang, hindi na po makatarungan ang polisiyang ito. Paano na ang mga OFWs? Ibinayad na ang pagod at panahon, kailangan pa nilang magbayad ng buwis para sa mga sapatos, damit at iba pang pasalubong. Dahil hindi pa nababago ang halagang ito, worry, hindi nasusunod ang polisiya. Bukas tuloy ang pagkakataon para ito'y pagsamantalahan. Ginoong Pangulo, inamyendahan po natin ang Tariff and Customs Code of the Philippines pagkatapos maging miyembro ng World Trade Organization o WTO noong 1995. We passed the following laws to amend the TCCP. Republic Act 8751 in 1999, which imposes the countervailing duties on imports that contain subsidies disallowed by the WTO. Republic Act 8752 in 1999, the Anti-Dumping Law, and Republic Act 9135 in 2001, which adopted the transaction value for customs valuation. Patse-patse po ang mga pagbabagong ito. Mistulang tinapalan ng mga butas, ngunit naiwan ang mga marurupok at antigong hibla sa batas. Naging signatory naman po tayo sa Revised Kyoto Convention or RKC. Sa pagtatalaga nito ng mga pamantayan para sa mga customs procedures, itinataguyod ng convention ang mas agarang kalakalan sa pandaigdigang merkado. Ang dapat pagdiinan ngayon ng mga customs administrations ng mundo ay yung tinatawag po na trade facilitation. Hindi lamang po ang pagkontrol ng galaw ng mga produkto o ang pagkolekta ng buwis mula rito. Mula noong pinagtibay ang ating lagda noong February 2010, hindi pa inaamyendahan ang TCCP ayon sa RKC o Revised Kyoto Convention. Pumailalim naman tayo sa ASEAN Single Window na nakaangkla sa Revised Kyoto Convention para malayang makipagpalitan ng mga miyembro ng ASEAN ng datos tungkol sa mga imports at exports nito. Mas mapapabilis at iigting ang transparency sa Bureau of Customs. Lalong maienggayo ang mundo na makipagkalakalan dito po sa atin. Patitibayin ito ang ating global competitiveness. Lalawak ang pagkakataon na bukas sa atin sa AEC integration. Ginoong Pangulo, nais po natin ang isang modernong Bureau of Customs or BOC dahil matagal na rin nababahiran ng katiwalian ang reputasyon ng institusyong ito. Makatarungan ba ho na ang bansag na ito na one of the most corrupt government agencies sa mga kawani ng BOC na marangal na nagtatrabaho? Nakapanlulumo rin dahil ang BOC ay isang frontliner agency, isa sa mga mukhang hinaharap natin sa ibang bansa. Marapat na ito'y tunay na mapagkakatiwalaan. May mga indikasyon na nanantiling talamak ang smuggling. Ayon sa isang pag-aaral, mula 1960 hanggang 2011, umabot sa $277 bilyong ang halagang hindi nakokolekta ng gobyerno dahil sa technical smuggling. Bilyon-bilyong piso kada taon ang halaga ng agricultural smuggling industry. Nakakapasok nga ang mas murang bigas, asukal, sibuyas, bawang, karne, baboy, manok. Naiiwang mahirap ang ating kanayunan. Hindi na ngayon masabi ng ating economic managers ang tunay na kalagayan ng ekonomiya sa larangan ng kalakalan. Ano nga ba ang hindi natin ay salang-alang tuwing maghain ng mangkok ng malinamnam na sinandoming at bowl ng maasim na sinigang? Mapait po ata ang katotohanan. Kaya ihalili po natin ang TCCP or Tariff and Customs Code of the Philippines sa mga pandaigdigang pamantayan para mapabilis ang galaw ng mga produkto ayon sa namamayaning konsepto ng trade facilitation habang nakakolekta ang tamang buwis. Para rin po mapagkatiwalaan natin ang ating Bureau of Customs. Our proposal simplifies customs procedures such as with import clearances, making the release of goods much faster regardless of whether you are an individual entrepreneur or a large multinational. For instance, highly compliant or low-risk importers may enjoy the benefit of deferred payment of duties and taxes subject to certain rules and conditions. The measure, Mr. President, also reinforces Bureau of Customs functions towards simplified, secured, and harmonized trade facilitation. Mas malinaw na rin ang basehan ng mga valuations at ang mga proseso para sa mga free importations, regulated importations, at sa mga prohibited and restricted importations. Malinaw na rin po ang mga patakaran hinggil sa pag-aangkat sa pamamagitan ng customs transit at transshipment. We emphasize information and communications technology or ICT to speed up customs operations and to make them more transparent. We aim to ingrain transparency and accountability into the BOC. For instance, district officers and frontliner employees will be prevented from holding the same position in the same district for more than 3 years. Higher penalties and punishments will also be prescribed as a further deterrent to smuggling. Our measure clearly defines the exercise of customs police authority, customs jurisdiction, and customs control. Patataasan na rin po natin ang tax-exempt value ng mga balikbayan box mula 10,000 pesos hanggang 150,000 pesos at ang de minimis value mula 10 pesos hanggang 10,000 pesos. Minamandato rin ng maaring baguhin ang mga halagang ito every 3 years. Nais rin po namin gawing duty at tax-free ang mga donasyon at relief goods tuwing panahon ng kalamidad na ngayon pinapatawan ng VAT. At para maging tax-free ay kailangan pang dumaan sa DSWD sa pamamagitan ng mga accredited NGOs bago makarating sa mga nangangailangan sa oras ng sakuna. Malinaw na rin nasa poder ng customs ang ibenta, gamitin o i-donate ang mga inabandonang kargamento batay sa mga patakaran na itatalaga sa gagawing implementing rules and regulations ng batas. Ginoong Pangulo, itinataya ng Bureau of Customs na kapag maisabatas ang CMTA, magkakaroon ng 10% improvement sa revenue collection. Kung ang collection nila noong 2014 ay 369 na bilyong piso or 369 billion pesos, ang di umanong dagdag ay 36 o 37 bilyong piso or 36 to 37 billion pesos in added revenue if the estimates of the Bureau are correct. Malaki-laki pong ambag ito sa kaban ng bayan. Marahil kayang-kaya na ang may pasa ang hinihiling po nating income tax reform. Bukod po sa karagdagang pondo, dapat alalahanin ang ambag ng CMTA sa pagpapabilis ng galaw ng kalakal sa ating bansa. Kapag may sabatas po ang panukala, hindi po hungkag ang ating pagiging country host ng Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Meeting sa Nobyembre. Dagdag dito, maiibsan na rin ang katiwalian sa Bureau at bababa po ang cost of doing business. Ginoong Pangulo, hindi nga po madali ang pagmamodernisa ng customs, pero nararapat lang na tahakin ito. 10 taon na pong dinidebate ang panukala at bawat oras na pinalipas, umiiral ang isang antigot, di umanong baluktot na sistema. Oras na po para ituwid ito. Pasana po natin ang CMTA. Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo at mga kasamahan.
Thank you. Maraming salamat, Senator Sonny Angara.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of Senate Bill number 2968 under Committee Report number 264.
Before we act on the motion of the Majority Leader, Senator Angara wishes to be once
Just
more
a manifestation with the indulgence of our colleagues and the Majority Leader, Mr. President. I just saw the note that Senator Cynthia Villar also wishes to be a co-author of the measure. Thank you, Mr. President.
reflect in the record the co-authorship of Senator Villar. Acting on the motion of the Majority Leader, consideration of Senate Bill number
2968.
2968 under Committee Report 264 is hereby suspended.
A minute suspension, Mr. President.
1 minute suspension. Tabo. Balik ko ito lang. Hawakan mo. Masyari. Oh, ito rin. Yung education bills mo. Say. Akin na nga yun. Let's go, just go through it.
Ready to resume, Mr. President.
Session is resumed.
With the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of House Bill number 1841 under Committee Report number 111.
In order.
Mr. President, this is the bill on Corazon C. Aquino National High School. The parliamentary status is that the sponsor, this representation, has delivered the sponsorship speech last June 10, 2015. I thus move that we open the period of interpellation.
In order.
I move that we recognize this representation to
The
no, Mr. President, we have already there already has been a sponsorship, and so we are now in the period of interpellation, and there are no reservations for interpellation, Mr. President.
okay. The period for interpellation is thereby terminated.
I move that we open the period of committee amendments.
Committee amendments are in order.
Mr. President, as the sponsor of the measure, I confirm that there are no committee amendments, Mr. President.
No committee amendments.
I move that we terminate the period of committee amendment.
So terminated.
I move that we open the period of individual amendments.
Individual amendments are in order.
Mr. President, as sponsor of the measure, we have not received any reservations to make any individual amendments.
So the
We
period for
move that,
individual.
we move that the period is closed. The period for individual amendments is
terminated.
closed. Mr. President, I move that we approve House Bill number 1841 under Committee Report number 111 on second reading.
Any objection? Hearing none. House Bill 1841 under Committee Report 111 is hereby approved on second reading. Can the chair request for, with the permission of the chamber, 1 minute suspension?
Yes.
Session is resumed. The acting majority leader, and the sponsor of the measures under consideration is once more recognized.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of House Bill number 4262 under Committee Report number 231.
In order.
Mr. President, this is the bill on Maria Clara Lobregat National High School. Mr. President, the parliamentary status is that as sponsor, I have delivered the sponsorship speech last September 21. There are no reservations for interpellations, there is no committee amendment, and there are no individual amendments, Mr. President. Therefore, I move that we terminate the period of interpellation and the period of amendments, and I move that we approve on second reading House Bill number 4262 under Committee Report number 231.
Any objection? Hearing none, the period for amendments, the period for interpellation and amendments are hereby terminated. Upon motion of the majority leader and sponsor, there being no objection, House Bill 4262 under Committee Report 231 is approved on second reading.
Thank you. Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill number 4262 under Committee Report number 231.
So suspended.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of House Bill number 4853 under Committee Report number 233.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
Mr. President, this is the bill on Libagon National High School. The parliamentary status is that the sponsor, this representation has delivered the sponsorship speech last September 21. There are no reservations for interpellation, there are no committee amendments, and there are no reservations for committee amendments. Thus, I move that the period for interpellation and the period for amendments is closed.
Any objection? Hearing none. So terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we approve House Bill number 4262 under Committee Report number 231 on second reading.
Any objection? Hearing none. So approved on second reading.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of House Bill number 4920 under Committee Report number 236.
Before that, can we suspend consideration of House Bill 4262?
Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill number
4262?
4853? 4853. 4853, Mr. President, under Committee Report 233. Libago National High School.
So suspended.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of House Bill number 4920 under Committee Report 236.
Are we in the agenda is House Bill 4853, Madam Sponsor. We have not resumed consideration of that bill unless.
Tapos na. Did we just finish that? Did I skip it?
May 1 minute suspension.
Yes.
Can you give to Pia the agenda? Yung agenda natin. Yung agenda lang para masundan niya. Bigyan mo yung agenda, total. Yung ano lang, basta yung ano, yung agenda, ibigay mo kay Pia. Pia, yung agenda. Basta, Queenie, ano take up natin?
4920.
Session is resumed. Senator Pia Cayetano is recognized. Session is resumed. Senator Pia Cayetano is recognized.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of House Bill number 4920 under Committee Report number 236.
In order.
Mr. President, this is the bill on Navotas National Science High School. The parliamentary status is that the sponsor, this representation, has delivered the sponsorship speech last September 21. There are no reservations for interpellation, there is no committee amendments, and there are no reservations for amendments. Thus, I move that the period of debates be closed.
Any objection? Hearing none, the period for debates is terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we approve House Bill number 4920 under Committee Report number 236 on second reading.
Any objection? Hearing none, House Bill 4920 is hereby approved on second reading.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill number 4920 under Committee Report number 236.
Consideration of the measure is suspended.
With the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of House Bill number 3154 under Committee Report number 225.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
This is the bill on the Andres Bonifacio Integrated School. The parliamentary status is that the sponsor, this representation, has delivered the sponsorship speech last September 21. There are no reservations for interpellation, there is no committee report, and there are no reservations for amendments as well. I therefore move that the period for the debates are terminated.
Any objection? Hearing none, so terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we approve House Bill number 3154 under Committee Report number 225 on second reading.
Any objection? Hearing none, House Bill 3154 is hereby approved on second reading.
I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill number 3154 under Committee Report number 225.
Consideration of the measure is suspended.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of House Bill number 4261 under Committee Report number 234.
In order.
This is the bill on the Bacau Integrated School. The parliamentary status is that the sponsor, this representation, has delivered the sponsorship speech last September 21. There are no reservations for interpellation, there are no committee amendments, and there are no reservations for individual amendments. I therefore move that the period of debates be terminated.
Period for debates terminated.
I move that we approve House Bill number 4261 under Committee Report number 234 on second reading.
Any objection? Hearing none, House Bill 4261 is hereby approved on second reading.
I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill number 4261 under Committee Report number 234.
Consideration of the measure is suspended.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of House Bill number 3232 under Committee Report number 219.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
Mr. President, this is the bill on Cabugao National High School. The parliamentary status is that the sponsor, this representation, has delivered the sponsorship speech last September 21. There are no reservations for interpellation, there are no committee amendments, and there are no reservations for individual amendments. I therefore move that the period of the debates be terminated.
Period for debate terminated.
I move that we approve House Bill number 3232 under Committee Report number 219 on second reading.
Any objection? Hearing none, approve on second reading.
I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill number 3232 under Committee Report number 219.
Consideration of the measure is suspended.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of House Bill number 2081 under Committee Report number 226.
Any objection? Hearing none, in order.
This is the bill on the Maria Clara Lobregat National High School, Mr. President. The parliamentary status is that the sponsor has delivered the sponsorship speech last September 21. A minute suspension.
2081 is the
Limbaan.
Limbaan.
Yes, Mr. President.
Limbaan National.
Let me correct that.
Yes.
This is the bill on the Limbaan National High School. And the parliamentary status is that the sponsors delivered the sponsorship speech last September 21. There are no reservations for interpellation. There are no committee amendments. There are no reservations for individual amendments. I therefore move that we close the period of debates.
Period for debates terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we approve House Bill number 2081 under Committee Report number 226 on second reading.
Any objection? Hearing none. House Bill 2081 under Committee Report 226 is hereby approved on second reading.
I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill number
suspended.
2081 under Committee Report 226. Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of House Bill number 4918 under Committee Report number 227.
Any objection? Hearing none, in order.
Mr. President, this is the Tukuran Technical Vocational High School. The parliamentary status is that the sponsor, through this representation, has delivered the sponsorship speech last September 21. There are no reservations for interpellation, there are no committee amendments, and there are no reservations for individual amendments. I therefore move that we terminate the period of the debates.
Period for debates is terminated under House Bill 4918.
I move that we approve House Bill number 4918 under Committee Report 227 on second reading.
Any objection? Hearing none. Approve on second reading House Bill 4918.
I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill number 4918 under Committee Report number 227.
So suspended.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of House Bill number 4921 under Committee Report number 228.
Any objection? Hearing none, in order.
This is the bill on the Compostela National High School. The parliamentary status is that the sponsor has delivered the sponsorship speech last September 21. There are no reservations for interpellation, there are no committee amendments, and there are no reservations for individual interpellation. I move that we terminate the period of debates.
Period for debates hereby terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we approve House Bill number 4921 under Committee Report number 228 on second reading.
Any objection? Hearing none. House Bill number 4921 under Committee Report 228 is approved on second reading.
I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill number 4921 under Committee Report number 228.
So suspended.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of House Bill number 4291 under Committee Report number 229.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
This is an act separating the Luna National High School. The parliamentary status of this bill is that the sponsor, this representation, has delivered the sponsorship speech last September 21. There are no reservations for individual amendments. There are no reservations for interpellation, there are no committee amendments, and there are no reservations for individual amendments. I therefore move that we terminate the debates.
In objection, hearing none. Period. The debates on House Bill 4291 is hereby terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we approve House Bill number 4291 under Committee Report number 229 on second reading.
In objection, hearing none. House Bill 4291 under Committee Report 229 is hereby approved on second reading.
I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill number 4291 under
Consideration of the
Committee
measure
Report
is suspended.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of House Bill number 4367 under Committee Report number 230.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
Mr. President, this is an act separating the General Emilio Aguinaldo National High School. And the parliamentary status of this bill is that the sponsor, through this representation, has delivered the sponsorship speech last September 21. There are no reservations for interpellation, there are no committee amendments, and there are no reservations for individual amendments. I therefore move that we terminate the period of the debates.
Period of debates for House Bill 4367 is hereby terminated.
I move that we approve House Bill number 4367 under Committee Report number 230 on second reading.
Any objection, hearing none. House Bill 4367 under Committee Report 230 is hereby adopted on second reading.
I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill number 4367 under Committee Report number 230.
So suspended. 1 minute suspension. Pwede ba yung numero na lang basahin niya, no? Eh, gusto ko mag-chairman ng Committee on Education. Okay, session is resumed. The next item on our agenda is House Bill 4367. I'm sorry.
I think we finished that.
I'm sorry, 5055. Include the
Yes.
chair. It's already confused.
Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of House Bill number 5055.
In order?
Mr. President, I move that we terminate the period of debates.
So terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we approve on second reading House Bill number 5055.
Any objection? Hearing none, House Bill 5055 is hereby approved on second reading.
And Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill number
Consideration of the measure is suspended.
5055. Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we resume consideration of House Bill number 766.
Consideration of the measure is in order.
I move that we terminate the period of the debates, Mr. President.
The period of debate is hereby terminated.
I move that we approve on second reading House Bill number 766.
Any objection? Hearing none, House Bill 766 is hereby approved on second reading.
I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill number 766.
Consideration of the measure is suspended.
Mr. President, for consideration is House Bill number 3652.
Consideration of House Bill 3652 is in order.
Mr. President, I move that we terminate the period of debates of House Bill number
The
3652.
period of debates is hereby terminated.
I move that we approve on second reading House Bill number 3652.
In objection, hearing none, House Bill 3563 is hereby approved on second reading.
I move that we approve on second reading House Bill number 3652.
In objection, hearing none, House Bill 3562 is approved on second reading.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of House
So
Bill number
suspended.
3652. Mr. President, for consideration is House Bill number 1268.
Consideration of House Bill 1268 is in order.
Mr. President, I move that we close the period of debates of House Bill number
The
1268.
period for debates on House Bill 1268 is hereby terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we approve on second reading House Bill number 1268.
In objection, hearing none, House Bill 1268 is hereby approved on second reading.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill number 1268.
Consideration of the measure is suspended.
Mr. President, for consideration is House Bill number 3233.
Consideration of House Bill 3233 is in order.
Mr. President, I move that we close the period of debates of House Bill number 3233.
The period for debates on House Bill 3233 is hereby terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we approve on second reading House Bill number 3233.
In objection, hearing none, House Bill 3233 is hereby approved on second reading.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill number 3233.
Consideration of the measure is suspended.
Mr. President, for consideration is House Bill number 3654.
Consideration of House Bill 3654 is in order.
Mr. President, I move that we close the period of debates on House Bill number 3654.
Period for debates on House Bill 3654 is hereby terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we approve on second reading House Bill number 3654.
Any objection? Hearing none, House Bill 3654 is hereby approved on second reading.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill number 3654.
Consideration of the measure is hereby suspended.
Mr. President, for consideration is House Bill number 4287.
Consideration of House Bill 4287 is in order.
Mr. President, I move that we close the period of debates on House Bill number 4287.
Period for debates is hereby terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we approve on second reading House Bill number 4287.
Any objection? Hearing none, House Bill 4287 is hereby terminated. Is hereby approved on second reading.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill number 4287.
I'm sorry, what was the
I move that we suspend consideration.
consideration of House Bill 4287 is hereby suspended.
Mr. President, for consideration is House Bill number 4263.
Resumption of consideration of House Bill 4263 is in order.
Mr. President, I move that we close the period of debates for House Bill number
The
4263.
period for debates on House Bill 4263 is hereby closed and terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we approve on second reading House Bill number 4263.
Any objection? Hearing none. House Bill 4263 is hereby approved on second reading.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill
Consideration
number
of House Bill
4263.
4263 is hereby suspended.
Mr. President, I move that we resume consideration of House Bill number 4854.
Any objection? Hearing none. Resumption of consideration of House Bill 4854 is hereby resumed.
Mr. President, I move that we close the period of debates for House Bill number
Period
4854.
for debates is hereby terminated under House Bill 4854.
Mr. President, I move that we approve on second reading House Bill number 4854.
Any objection? Hearing none. House Bill 4854 is hereby approved on second reading.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill number 4854.
Period for consideration of the measure is suspended.
Mr. President, I move that we resume consideration of House Bill number 4631.
Any objection? Hearing none. Consideration of House Bill 4631 is in order.
Mr. President, I move that we close the period of debates for House Bill number 4631.
Period for debates on House Bill 4631 is hereby closed.
Mr. President, I move that we approve on second reading House Bill number 4631.
Any objection? Hearing none. House Bill 4631 is hereby approved on second reading.
I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill number 4631.
Consideration of the measure is suspended.
Mr. President, I move to resume consideration of House Bill number 4288.
Consideration of House Bill 4288 is in order.
Mr. President, I move that we close the period of debates for House Bill number 4288.
Period for debates is hereby terminated.
Mr. President, I move to approve on second reading House Bill number 4288.
Any objection? Hearing none. House Bill 4288 is hereby approved on second reading.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill number 4288.
Consideration of House Bill 4288 is hereby suspended. Please proceed.
Mr. President, I move that we resume consideration of House Bill number 3653.
Any objection? Hearing none. Consideration of House Bill 3653 is in order.
Mr. President, I move that we close the period of debates for House Bill number
The
3653.
period for debates under House Bill 3653 is hereby terminated.
Mr. President, I move that we approve on second reading House Bill number 3653.
Any objection? Hearing none. House Bill 3653 is hereby approved on second reading.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill number 3653.
Consideration of the measure is hereby suspended. The Secretariat is hereby directed to reflect the titles of these measures in the records of the Senate.
Mr. President, there being no other matter to take up today, I move that we adjourn the session until 4 o'clock in the afternoon of Tuesday, September 29, 2015.
The session is hereby adjourned until September 29, 2015 at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And the Secretariat is hereby directed to notify the members of the chamber that the session will be called at 4 p.m. Session so adjourned.